This is chapter 3 from the blog Someone Else's Recovery. You cannot tell a sinister enchantment from a divine light. Between catching up on the 2 days of missing sleep and cursing myself for being a caring introvert, I had transferred all my energy just to get him there. And for what? More pain? Thinking of him alone at the Salvation Army? I had never been there before, so I'm sure my movie mind was making it worse. I knelt on the hardwood holding my bed up, choking back tears, and clasped my hands. For the first time in a long time, I prayed. He was truly a sweet, good-looking man, so Irish and classic. It felt like we were two separate puzzles, colliding to fit into my perception. Detox wouldn't give an answer, except it would be a week before a bed was available again. Maybe. Can I stay with you, Nicole? His words, melting popsicle droplets, were sweet to my ears but bad for the teeth. They stained my lips. Something in me that I had never experienced with any other human had happened, including years of childhood trauma and bullying. I had reached a plateau where even though I could give and I could accommodate, I knew for my own well-being that I would not. My gut felt like a soaked dish towel being wrung out saying no. I felt so cruel. What must he think of me in this moment? What kind of lover would leave him in a shelter? There's too much alcohol here. I referred to my parents' collection of homemade wine in generous batches lining the walls. A feast for his eyes, a killer of his liver. If I lived alone, it would be different, I mumble. He accepted it and moved on so quickly I was relieved but also confused about the lack of fireworks. Over the next few days, I was a computer, poring over his many open tabs. Regardless that he was not around me at all, I was awakened at all hours of the night by calls from him. Calling him back to receive his now familiar answering machine, him to mine as well, with long strings of accidental voicemails, snow crunching under his running shoes, muffled laughing with unknown people in the dark city streets. I sat hunched, trying to make out words for clues. Police giving me ultimatums to bring him to me or the drunk tank, my call. His mom and friends calling me for updates as if I was his personal tracking number or a DPT, drunk person tracker. I was the only one he was letting in, crying into the receiver that he was supposed to die in the streets, just like a poet he was named after. The first few times, I sympathized, until I became angry. You don't have the same fate as anyone else, I said in a mom voice. I was a potted plant, turned over of its contents, by the time my alarms went off to get up for work. I used the time I usually use to put makeup on, to visualize and pray, to imagine St. Michael's sword puncturing a bed in what looked like some institutionally bare room I had never seen. Please just keep him there. Keep him safe for a few more days until a bed opens up. I spoke aloud in hushed tones. My days were suffering. I was tired, especially since there was never any sun and I was digitally chasing someone around. Winter was hard for the best of us, let alone the unwell. My breaks were spent talking to him, barely eating. He was driving people he met there around the city, drunk. Pass the phone to them, I said. Confused, he did. He is drunk. Make him pull over and walk. He can't be driving. The stranger with some Spanish-like accent brushed me off because his will to get around to appointments through this drunk man was an important asset he was not giving up, even if it cost lives. This sort of selfish ignorance made my teeth grind and ground my gears. Some friends and family made a plan. They took his van away to some other location after that. Our conversation was sparse some days, but I poured out my heart in an appeal to him. You are like a ray of sunshine that has forgotten you are part of the sun. You are your mother's heart walking the streets causing havoc. I kept praying, saging the items he had left with me. He kept drinking. Detox kept coming up with no empty beds daily. Every time he would call, it ended in disappointment and an excuse to continue, a justification. The calls became frequent, and his slurring tethered me to the line with concern. I grew up with a parent who abused substances and was a rager, but I had suppressed it so much. I couldn't remember it feeling this way. Maybe the difference was as a kid I had no choice, and now I was choosing this and him so willingly it hurt. I was choosing bondage. However, I would say telling the police to send him to the tank and risk arrest instead of coming to my house was hard. But it proved I tried my best to not enable him. I think at the time, I just had to take my hand off the hot stove. It was more about that than not wanting to help someone. Between the Salvation Army, the drunk tank, and the hospital twice, a faked heart attack to get out of the drunk tank, and a suicide threat. Within about 2 days. It was madness. He was the eye of the storm, the calmer on his own created chaos, oblivious to the destruction, to the resources being used, to the tears embroidered onto others' pillows at night. My badges of war were the dark circles pronounced in pale skin, and my life force sucked. I had not seen him in days, and yet here I was, chugging along, probably emptier than he. I had tried to sympathize. What must he actually be going through? What kind of pain? Especially considering the sexual abuse he had opened up about. I had gotten some numbers and resources and texted them to him in case he wanted to use them before he could get him where we needed him to be. I could not force him to act, but I could lend him the tools to use, and they could be by his side if he needed them. It was Saturday. I was at work. He called detox again, and they said maybe Monday. My face grew hot with anger. I didn't know if I was angry with him for already having the help and walking away to only want it again immediately and expect it to happen effortlessly like a toddler. Was I upset with my city's resources? Both? It was a perfect storm, and for the first time, I realized for Derek, it might be life or death this time, and I might actually lose him.